Thank you so much for that wonderful intro. Thank you for everyone out there who's joining us at our Diversity Reboot Summit on Financial Inclusion. And a very warm welcome to Rosa. Thank you so much for joining us for this session. Excited to have you here.
I am so thrilled to be here. Thank you to Power to Fly for the invitation.
Fabulous. Well, let's get started because we have a lot to go over in this half hour here. So I think we should just start from the top. If you could just briefly introduce yourself a little bit and let us know, I think it's really interesting, your background, how you made that leap. I saw you have a bachelor's in psychology, but you also worked in tech and now in finance. So let us know how you made those leap and a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So you heard a little bit about me in the bio, but I'm a managing director at JPMorgan Chase. I am a very proud immigrant from the Dominican Republic, and I was raised in the Washington Heights section of Manhattan. So in the Heights, that's where I'm from, and I spent my entire career in technology within financial services in a variety of roles. I started as a technology trainee, and I worked my way up to managing director. So I'm very proud of that. How I made the switch. So that is a little bit of a story. As you noted, I majored in liberal arts, in particular psychology and classics from NYU. And my concentration was in industrial psychology. And that's all about the workplace and how do we make the workplace more efficient for employees. And, as any college grad, when you graduate, I needed a job. And I came across a role where Morgan Stanley was recruiting for liberal arts graduates that were looking to get into computing. So I went on the interview, one of very few women actually who were on that interview. And I liked the angle of learning how to code to make the workplace more efficient through automation. And so I got the job. I thought that the kind of alignment was there with what I had studied in psychology, and I did learn how to code. And I spent the first part of my career automating security settlement processes. So that's how I started my career on Wall Street and how I made the transition.
What a fabulous story. Okay, I love that. Well, since you've been in the sector for a while, can you let us know a bit about what does that intersection between kind of engineering or tech and finance actually look like?
I think that that intersection is an exciting and interesting one. First, I cannot think of any industry that is not touched by technology today. Look at Power to Fly. Look at what we're doing today, right? We are touched by technology all the time. So in the very beginning of my career, I saw how technology made a difference in finance, right? Making it more efficient. Us being able, whether it's in the back office where I focused a lot of my earlier parts of my career, and eliminating manual effort, allowing us our volumes to grow exponentially, and other areas of technology which have made the improbable probable. Who would have thought that you would be able to carry a bank on your phone, right? I mean, that was you have everything at your fingertips. That has happened through technological progress. So that intersection is very interesting, exciting, very creative as well. I think that the way that the industry also pivoted to virtual is another way of that intersection. Who would have thought that bankers would be able to conduct business virtually and not travel, right? That's another great example of that intersection. I think for me, another intersection that I have seen throughout my career is the intersection of diversity and technology and finance. So, when I started, my training class at Morgan Stanley was 12 people. I was one of 3 women in that 12-person class, and I was the only person of color. When I take a look at what our firm is doing, JPMorgan Chase, in supporting programs like All-Star Code, Girls Who Code, HITEC, ITSMF, our software engineering program, those efforts are all very much focused on diversity, making sure that our intake has diverse individuals. And where there is effort, there is change. There's so much more that we need to do, but that intersection is much more diverse than when I started.
Fabulous. That is great to hear. Thank you so much for sharing. I want to touch on a little bit of your experience because there's a Harvard Business Review out there where you talk a bit about a time in one of your previous roles when you were in charge of an all-male team, as the financial world can be a lot of times. And a colleague gave you a piece of advice and they said you should act tougher. And you had some resistance to this. So I would love to know, like, why did you resist the urge to act tougher? And how did you know that it was the right thing to do?
I love that story. And let's spend a little bit of time on it. So as I mentioned, I am a proud immigrant Latina. And I was raised on minimum wage. I was raised in a very tight-knit Hispanic family. And family was everything. I was not raised to be a tough person. In my family, growing up, I was raised to be respectful. I was raised to be demure. I was raised to be empathetic. I was raised to have faith. I was raised to work hard. Those were kind of the values that my family had. I learned a couple other things along the way, working in Wall Street, that faith also translates into having faith in your own abilities. You have to believe in yourself. And so when my colleague mentioned that, I thought to myself, someone higher than me put me in this role, gave me this management responsibility, and I was put there for a reason. And that reason is because I have the ability. I have the ability to lead. I have the ability to make these decisions. And I have to decide what that right direction is. And that direction has to be in line with who I am as a leader. I had to be authentically me. So in that situation, I had inherited a team that was like a hodgepodge of a whole bunch of different organizations. And so that team, many of them didn't know each other before. They hadn't worked with one another before. They were questioning, why are we together as a team? What is the synergy? And so one of the things that I emphasized was collaboration. I emphasized the how, the why we were together as a team. I emphasized, hey, Seppi, if you were on my team, let's get to know Seppi better. What is special about Seppi? Let's get to know her as a person. Let's get to know how she fits into the team. And I had the whole team do that. Then I also emphasized other aspects around why our teams were together, how maybe two groups that had never worked together before came together and accomplished a common goal. And all of a sudden, it was very clear why we were a team. We were put together for a reason, and I celebrated that. And that celebration was also in line with my cultural heritage, in which we celebrate successes. And so that worked. And we had one of the highest engagement scores in any surveys in my team. And so tough sometimes is not what is needed. You have to assess the situation, and you also have to trust your own abilities and why someone put you there. So anyway, that's my story. And that's why I resisted, because I knew in my heart that the team needed something else.
Love that. Love that. And just want to ask the audience out there, if there's anyone out there, any women of color, Latinas out there who, maybe feel the same way, that, maybe we're given some advice to be a certain way that felt kind of, against their own leadership style or their own natural style. Let us know what kind of advice you got and what did you choose to do? Did you take the advice or did you listen to your gut? Let us know there. Touching on, I can tell you're really proud of your cultural heritage, and I love that. I'm half Colombian myself, so I love, being Latina, celebrating that. But I'd love to know, how you embrace your cultural identity, again, in an industry that's predominantly white male.
Yeah, and I really think that it is so important that and you take pride in where you came from. That knowing where you came from, that sense of who you are and being proud, that gives you strength, an inner strength that I don't think that I can find anywhere else. And I also think it's important that you know what your strengths are, that you know how you show up every day. What do you bring to the table? And that you leverage those strengths. How many times do we look at a performance evaluation, or we talk to someone and we jump to the end where it says areas of improvement? Of course, work on those, but leverage your strengths. And the more experience that I gained, the more that I honed my skills, the more that I acquired different skills, my confidence in myself and my abilities grew. And when you have the skills, when you have the subject matter expertise, that's a fact. That is like when you have the skills, you can bring it. And with that confidence, I found that if I tried to be someone that I was not, if I tried to be a tough person and that really is not in my personality, that takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of like mind share that I want to be putting into getting to the next step, into, networking with others, like not necessarily being somebody that I'm not. So that's what I did. I embraced who I was. I also had a number of mentors and sponsors who believed in me and who made me feel very comfortable in sharing my story, made me feel very comfortable about being myself. I attended meetings and joined employee resource groups. Interesting things when you do that, when you meet kindred spirits, when you meet someone that has a similar background, all of a sudden you can talk about things that you couldn't maybe with other colleagues. And so I became more and more active in that. And so when I was promoted to managing director at Morgan Stanley, I was also asked to chair the Employee Latino Network. And so all of a sudden, my ethnicity, I was using not just to, influence maybe how I lead, but also from a leadership position to other individuals that were like-minded or who wanted to know more about what it was like being a Latino, right? Because anybody could join a network. And I just thought it was wonderful to be able to share your culture at work. Something happened along the way through that journey, through me being comfortable with me having the right sponsors, the right mentors, leading employee networks along with the work that I did in my day job, is that I started sharing my story. When you share your story, you inevitably will find someone that says, that resonates with me. I can see myself in you. Wow, I didn't know someone like you had, a role like that. I didn't know there was somebody as senior as you in technology. And, you cannot be what you cannot see. And I am proud to share my story. I'm proud to have many other Latinas, maybe even from Washington Heights, right? Surpass me in anything that I have accomplished. But I think that's really important in today's world.
Love that. Thank you for sharing with us. And I love that. I mean, sharing your story is so important, not only to connect with people who maybe, aspire or feel like they're a kindred spirit or maybe have a similar story, but also I think that's where you can really connect on a human level. And that can take you really far in the workplace as well, connecting with people on a human level. Any tips you gave us a lot of great information there, but any additional tips for Latinas or women of color who want to bring their authentic self to work, but maybe just don't feel comfortable?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I learned is, again, I mentioned I come from really humble beginnings. I don't shy away from saying that because you know what? That's something to be proud of. So don't shy away from that. I learned that your original station in life does not define you, does not define your destination. So don't let it. Hone your craft, celebrate your successes, be yourself every day, because you have the capacity to really, do what you want. It's going to be hard work, no doubt. It will be absolutely hard work, but we're not afraid of that, right? Like we're not afraid of hard work. any Latinas and any like women of color out there know that that is our X factor. Our work ethic is our X factor. I think the other thing too is get mentors and sponsors. That's really important, especially for women, especially for underrepresented women. You need some help along your journey. You need that advocacy, and they're going to be invaluable. I think the other thing too, and I think you mentioned this a little bit, Seppi, is around your peer networks. You know, I'm thinking about the pandemic and the importance of being an empathetic leader, of being in service to others. It cannot be more important and more needed in today's world. I think about everything that's going on in the United States with what happened last summer, and with everything with George Floyd and all the racial injustice that has been going on, all the Asian violence that we see happening with COVID, what's happening with India, like just being empathetic leader and in service of others, like that will distinguish you in ways that you can't even imagine. And having also peers that you can count on during those tough times will also great sounding boards. Every experience, even the not so good ones, are great learning experiences. Embrace those, learn from them, and then move on. Don't dwell on like, this didn't go the way that I wanted, and don't dwell on it. Learn from it, move on, the next thing. And then be authentically you. There is no one else better at being you than you. So be that person.
Love it. Love it. Thank you so much. I'm going to just take a look at the chat here. I see some comments coming in. We actually have some comments coming in from when you were talking about leadership. So we have Dana here says, I have used servant leadership and laissez-faire leadership styles. We have other people who say here, they love that you said that, tough isn't always the solution. And someone added here, as long as you are assertive.
I think one thing on that, Seppi, if I may, sometimes people equate tough with getting results. Like you have to be tough to get this, right? Like you have to show that you're a certain way to get results. That's not always true in all situations. There's always a time and place for everything. The kinds of work that we do, you can do in a very collaborative way. And, I use the word service, to change from servant, like service leadership in service of others. I think that's really important. And then on the assertiveness, of course, I believe, and I myself have been ambitious about where I want to get to. That's why I firmly believe, don't waste energy on things that you should put into getting to the next level, right? That's where you want to put your energy, into building up your skills, into what's the next big project that I want to work on, versus, let me try to be someone that I'm not.
Love that. Love it. Yes. Focus your energy on what's going to move that needle forward in the direction of where you want to go. Yes. We have about 8 minutes left. So if the audience has any questions, let us know. Drop them here in the chat box. I do just want to go to a few more comments here. Ashley also talking about advice that she was given for leadership. Someone told her to be less direct. And she says, I took it with a grain of salt because I was also awarded because I was more effective than my colleagues. So thank you for sharing, Ashley. Just looking through here, we got a lot of comments.
I think that's one thing that I would say around that. I always say that the best response to feedback is thank you. Because once you know, you can do something about it. And I don't know if it was Hillary Clinton or somebody mentioned this, but once you know, it is up to you to decide how to action it. So you don't have to take every single piece of feedback and say, yeah, I'm going to action. You have to figure out, okay, what's behind this? How am I going to react to it? Good thing that I'm aware. What is it that I'm going to do with that information? But it's really up to you.
Great. Love it. I have a question here about, you were talking about celebrating your successes and just kind of talking about, this series here, this summit, the series is about financial inclusion. And I want to talk a little about advocating for yourself as an employee and kind of knowing your worth and really speaking up. Because I know for a lot of women, they may not feel comfortable speaking up or even, tooting their own horn. So really celebrating their successes and really owning and conveying how important their contributions are, whether that's to a team or to a project. Especially when it's for something critical, when it's for, when you're trying to advocate for yourself, whether that's for a raise or promotion or just to be recognized. Do you have any tips for women for to help them feel more comfortable to speak up and really, allow themselves to be seen fully and get that recognition that they so deserve?
That's a fantastic question. And I actually do have a tip on that one, which has worked for me. I think culturally, for, again, just the way that I was raised in my background, kind of tooting your own horn can be a little bit like bragging, and it doesn't feel right because you're supposed to be humble, like you're supposed to be comfortable with where you are and like not make waves. That's all well and good, but the facts are the facts. And so what I would encourage you is not to think about it as like tooting your own horn, but think about being as objective as you can and telling the truth. If you had impact on a project, then say, this is what I did. It is not bragging. It is, you are telling the truth. When you feel that you are saying something truthful, you say that with confidence because you have lived it. You have experienced it. I think one other little trick that I have too is that sometimes the people who are best positioned to say about the impact are things like your clients or other peers or other individuals that you've worked with. So maybe you get an email from someone that says, Seppi, you did a great job on that project. Thank you so much for going above and beyond. And you're like, oh, great, I got that email. How about flipping that to your boss? Really, really small thing. But now all of a sudden, like your boss is like, oh, wow. I'm like, and you could just send something like, hey, look what I just got. I'm so happy about, I spent a lot of time working on this project. I felt so good when I got this email. Like those are like small little things. And I think one other thing that is a really important strategic tool that maybe you are not thinking about that way is every firm usually has self-evaluations. I have myself read self-evaluations from my male employees and my female employees. And I know very much what their contributions were. When I read the male reviews, right, there are a lot about, I did this, I led this. And women will say the same thing. And I'm overgeneralizing a little bit for effect, but women will say, I contributed, I worked with the team, kind of downplaying a little bit about their own contribution. Read how you're describing your contribution. Read it a couple of times. And then I would ask you to put in a couple of I's in there that are well-deserved.
Love that piece of advice. Thank you. And we have a few questions here. Ooh, I don't know if we're gonna have time for all of them, but thank you everyone for these lovely questions. Lauren here is asking, what's the best piece of feedback you've ever gotten in your career?
The best piece of feedback that I got, and I would have to say it was probably when I started managing more and more people. And I was really, I wanted to do a really good job. I wanted to just knock it out of the park, right? And, some of my team said to me, like, relax, Rosa, like you're a little uptight, you're micromanaging us because you want everything to be perfect. And so I had to take a little bit of a step back and I had to say, look, how am I showing up to them? And then I had to tell them I am making an effort to adjust, and I enlisted their help. And you know what? That was just wonderful. And I'm like, if I'm doing something that is like a little bit much, please tell me, and then I know when to scale back. So I enlisted my team to kind of help me adjust as I was getting a bigger leadership position early on in my career. And that really helped. And that also helped my sense of community. And I incorporated that in other roles that I've had too, making that sense of community, saying like, this is our team. How are we going to approach things? And that really helps. But listening skills are really important, including some of the, the people that work with you.
Fabulous. Oh my gosh, we're almost at time here, but I would love to know if you have any advice for the audience, for anyone who aspires to be in your position someday. Any advice you have for them, and also where the women out there watching can connect with you?
Please connect with me on LinkedIn. So I'd love to chat. And then, my advice is get started. And know, and this is going to sound a little cliche, careers are long. It is a marathon and not a sprint. You will have ups, you will have downs. Everyone does. I went through I mentioned I was promoted from trainee through managing director throughout my career. And every single time I was up for promotion, the first time, I didn't get it. I got it the second time. And every single run. You all would not have known that unless I told you. Because those experiences should not define you. It is about how you react to those things and how you learn and how you move on. This is why peer networks are important. Do your best every single day and be strategic about the roles that you take. And the roles that you take may not give you the big promotion, but you have to think about what it could lead to, because it may not be staring you right in the face. So happy to dialogue more.
Thank you so much, Rosa. We could go on forever because we got more questions, but we are unfortunately at time here. So I just want to thank you so much for joining us here today. And everyone in the audience, give Rosa a round of applause in the chat out there. Rosa, thank you so much.
To everyone. Thank you, Seppi. It was great meeting you, and wonderful again to be here with Power to Fly.
Thank you. Passing it back to you, Meg.
Thank you so much, ladies. Can we get a round of applause for this amazing panel? Yay! There we go. All right. So thank you both, Rosa and Seppi. That was a really amazing chat to get to sit in on. So thank you so much.